And welcome on. This is Stan the Fan of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com with another edition of Facebook Live, PressBox Live. Gary Stein is with me as he usually is. Gary, how are you?
Good, Stanley. How are you?
Good, and I owe you kudos for picking out our guest this week, Coach Don Zimmerman, longtime coach in the NCAA realm, also coached high school at one point in time. Coach, we really appreciate you on here. You, of course, won championships at Johns Hopkins University. You were an assistant coach at UNC under Henry Scroggs there. They won a championship while you were there. You worked with Henry Ciccarone over at Johns Hopkins. Let me just ask you, this weekend, how would those two great coaches figure out a way to beat John Tillman and the juggernaut that he's created?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Absolutely.
Well, they've been spending long hours trying to figure that one out. This Maryland team, to me, is not only the team to beat, but I think they're really a generational team. This may be the best lacrosse team that we've seen in a long, long time. They have no weaknesses. They're well coached, and I'm sure we'll be talking about them in a few minutes. But this is a team that definitely, I think, has the more than just a leading edge on winning the championship on Memorial Day.
I'm agreeing with you in totality, Coach Zimmerman, but John Tillman, as much as I respect him and almost revere him, he's been to 8 Final Fours and he's won 1 championship. Is that the little fly in the ointment that the psyche of not having won either back-to-back or multiple championships, despite so many opportunities, is there? It sits in the back of the brain?
Well, I'm sure it does. And certainly, Coach Tillman would like to have won more championships than he has, but he's been there. He's given his team the opportunity to compete and win for a national title. But again, I think this team coming into this weekend is really no doubt the best team he's ever had. And again, one of the best teams we've seen in a long, long time. Before
I hand you over to Gary Stein, are they unbeatable?
Nobody's unbeatable. I can go back to 1987 when I was at Hopkins and we played Maryland in the semifinals. They were undefeated. They had beaten us 11-7 during the regular season. And, we were able to add some things into our schemes and come away with a big win against the then undefeated ACC champs. And then that team went on to beat the undefeated Ivy League champs, Cornell, for the national title. So, on any given day, anything can happen, but surely Maryland just has a special team and one that's going to be tough to beat this weekend.
Gary?
Well, even closer than that, Coach. Maryland was unbeaten last year until playing Virginia in the final, and Virginia was able to eke out that win. So you're absolutely right. No team, on any given Monday, as it were, for the NCAA championship. But hey, I want to take you back before we discuss what championship week is like for a team and a coach. I want to take you back to the quarterfinals for a minute. Your assistant coach back in the day, Bill Tierney, who went on to have a great head coaching career in his own right, obviously at Princeton and Denver, has said over the course of time that quarterfinal round in the NCAA tournament is the one with the most pressure, because it comes off the first round, and first round usually goes par for the course. It's the quarterfinal round where things start to happen. What about quarterfinal week? What about going into last week as a head coach? Do you agree with Tierney on that?
Well, I think the key is that you've got to take them one at a time, and you can't, you can't look past the first round because, things happen in that round. Just look at, what happened with Georgetown and Delaware.
Absolutely.
Number 2 seed got knocked off, and Delaware, that was not a fluke. Delaware is a very good lacrosse club, and they hung tough and came away with the win. But I think that the quarterfinals is now you've got 8 teams, and they've each won an NCAA tournament game. So now they're going for that next win, and really to get that next win takes you to championship weekend. So the prize is large. If you can get through the quarterfinals, you're going to championship weekend. So you go from, the season starts with 71 Division I lacrosse teams. You get to the quarterfinals, now it's 8, and you get to the championship weekend, it's 4. So it gets smaller and smaller each week. And then certainly the teams that advance with wins on Saturday, then there were 2. So each increment is exciting and tough. You can't look past any game at this point. It's one or done when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
So, Zim, those comments you made earlier about Maryland perhaps having the best team ever, potentially they haven't won anything yet. They're interesting comments coming from you because when you first started coaching at Hopkins, you became the first ever rookie coach to win an NCAA championship. Those teams that you had, 84, 85, and 87, are also considered to be, especially the 84 team, also considered to be among the best ever to play the game. So my question is, over the last 30 years, as you look at the way the game has evolved, I mean, do you think the athletes are actually better? Is the play actually better? Like, what's happened in the last 30 years? Is it natural evolution?
Well, number one, I think there are more athletes playing the sport. Lacrosse has been the fastest growing sport in the country for, I think, over a decade now. It's a great game. Kids in non-traditional hotbeds, California, Florida, you name it, they're playing, and they're playing well. You look at the rosters on these teams, and they've got kids from all different parts of the country. So I think there are more kids playing. I think that, kids today, because of the training that they go through, they're just bigger, stronger, faster. And the coaching is certainly at a very high level. So there are more players not only playing the sport, but there are more schools that are sponsoring the sport and putting money into the sport, resources. So it's become, very, very competitive. And I think that's what makes it exciting.
Hey, Coach, we're here locally, but obviously we're seeing other places. Anybody that turns on the web can watch us. I'm just curious. We all know John Tillman, but we don't know a lot about the potential opposition coaches this weekend. Connor Abzug, the class of 15, played at Cornell. He was a star player. Brian Brecht at Rutgers and Matt Madeline at Princeton. They'll play Maryland. Can you give us a thumbnail sketch of what makes those guys tick and what makes them good?
Well, like any coach, I think that they're competitive. They all represent, outstanding institutions. That's something in their favor. I know some better than others. Like I've known Brian Brecht for some time. I've watched him come up through the ranks, and he's paid his dues. He's worked at a number of institutions. He's like I said, paid his dues as an assistant coach, and he landed at a school now, a Big Ten school that's supporting men's lacrosse, and he's taken it one step at a time and really built a nice program. I was looking at their roster, and between seniors, fifth-year seniors, and grad students, their number is 27. I mean, that's 27 seniors, fifth-year seniors, and grad students on a club. I mean, that's a lot of experience right
A lot of
there.
veterans, yeah.
They've also got 14 players who have transferred into Rutgers from different schools. So they've really, he's got a bunch of players who have gone through the system, but also players that he's been able to bring in, attract to Rutgers, that have just given them more numbers and greater strength at pretty much every position. Madeline at Princeton and Connor Busick at Cornell, they're younger guys. Busick just finished playing. He played in the PLL, was a terrific player.
Right.
He realized, like most young coaches do, that there comes a point where you have to hang up the stick and focus on just coaching. You can't do both. It's very hard to do that.
Sean tried that for a good while, didn't he? Sean Madeline?
Yeah. And you realize that you can't do both. You don't have enough time in the day. So all these coaches have paid their dues. They're good coaches. I'm impressed with how they handle themselves, on the sidelines, their preparation, their game management. And I don't think it's any coincidence that they have brought their teams into championship weekend.
So the question is, we talk about being almost in awe reverentially about the University of Maryland. When you're preparing for a great team, do you point out how great they are to your players? Because this is a game. It's not like the NFL where you can see everybody play. I mean, I guess you can see more lacrosse games. Do those players go into this game against Maryland thinking they're unbeatable, thinking Maryland's unbeatable?
Absolutely not. I mean, if that's your attitude, you might as well not even
Might as
show
well
up.
hang it up.
I think that there's an awful lot of respect, and rightfully so, for Maryland's program. But I think Coach Tillman will be the first to tell you that he, his staff, and his players respect all of their opponents. So you have to have a good game plan, and that's a balance. You can't all of a sudden reinvent the wheel just because you're playing an opponent. You can't try to change everything. You've got to, as you always do, you have to know who you are and what you need to do for your team to be successful. Work on that, strengthen your game, so to speak, and then be ready to make adjustments against, for your opponent, matchups on defense, whether you play man or zone, little things, might have a few special plays ready to go, something that your opponent hasn't seen. But the bottom line is, lacrosse is a game of fundamentals. You got to win face-off. You got to get ground balls. Your goalie has to make saves. You can't have turnovers, and you got to stay out of the penalty box. So, it really is another game. It's a 60-minute, maybe perhaps plus game. But at the end of the day, it's still a lacrosse game, and you approach it like that, and knowing that, we've just got to, put our best game out on the field, and after 60 minutes, add them up and see, where things stand.
So, Coach, with no disrespect to the Cornell-Rutgers game, I wanted to stay with Maryland and Princeton for just a minute. If I'm Princeton, if I look at Princeton, and I know Maryland's, number one in the country scoring-wise, number one team in the country, period, undefeated. But Princeton is top 5 in scoring. They've scored better than 15 goals per game. And what I'm impressed as I watched a few of their games, they battle teams on the ground. In fact, I think they're number 1 in the country in ground balls per game. And we all know that kind of the nitty gritty, that's kind of the offensive line of a team, is picking up those loose ground balls and making your offense go. So, I mean, Princeton has nothing to be ashamed of coming into this game, obviously. But, I mean, if I'm Princeton, I think I can go toe-to-toe with anybody.
Well, again, and that's got to be your attitude. And it is all about ground balls. Ground balls means possession.
Correct.
And obviously, when you have the ball, you have an opportunity to score. But the other side of the coin is, when you have the ball, the other team can't score. So you're playing great defense when you're possessing the ball on offense. One really interesting stat, and I've always done this. When I get stats of teams, I go and I look at goals by quarter. And I normally do it to see if a team, is a fast starter or a slow starter, or if they have one particular quarter where they really, go after it. So just to give you an example, and I'll go to Cornell, here's a team that's playing in the semifinals. And in the first quarter, they're minus 12 on goals.
Wow.
So their opponents scored 12 more goals than they did throughout the season in the first quarter. And then in the second, third, and fourth, they go plus 16, plus 13, plus 12. So they start slow, but man, then they come on strong. Now, here's one about Maryland that I've never seen anything like this. So again, goals by period by quarter. Maryland this year, plus 46 in the first.
Whoa.
Plus 46 in the seven. Plus 47 in the third. They
Wow.
never take their
They
foot
never
off
let
the
up.
gas.
Yeah.
They never take their foot off the gas. I mean, I've never seen anything like that in all my years of coaching. So obviously, that's a combination of your offense that's just clicking on all cylinders, and it's a beautiful offense to watch. Bobby Benson's done a great job with that, but they're also playing great defense. They're winning faceoffs. Their goalie's making some good saves for them, and as a result, they're just, as we said, a very, very dangerous ball club. But going back to Princeton, again, they beat Yale to get here, and that's kind of almost a changing of the guard type game.
Absolutely. I think they had lost to Yale six times in a row.
Right. So they have a good young team. I think these kids that play Ivy League lacrosse, the fact that they didn't play last year, they were all chomping at the bit to get out there this year and prove that, they're good players, they're good teams, and they're ready to compete. And the Ivy League had a fantastic season all around. They got 6 teams into the tournament. I mean, I think 4 was the most before that.
For that, yeah.
And now it jumped to 6. So, so they, and what happens is because they had early season wins over, good out of conference competition that boosted their RPIs. Then when they start playing in conference, whether they win or lose, their RPI stays high.
Yeah.
And so that certainly helps them.
Yeah. So let me slip one more in. So if you're coaching Princeton and you're going up against Maryland, and you know that Maryland's the #1 team in the country scoring wise, do you take the air out of the ball? Do you wind that shot clock down as much as possible and keep the possession of the ball and out of their hands as long as possible?
Well, again, it's a very fine line, Gary. You want your kids to believe that they can win this game, and I'm sure Princeton believes they can win this game. But taking the air out of the ball, that could go against the message that you're talking
Sending,
about.
yeah.
We can win this game, but I want you to take the air out of the ball. So it's a fine line. I think they just have to play smart. They have to be clock aware. But I don't think it's going to be a game where Princeton's coming down on a 5-on-4, let's say, and they're just going to pull the ball out. I mean, I think they're going to attack, but like any game, the players have to make good decisions.
Coach, you mentioned, and it seems like that's what I would stress if I was Matt Madeline. We're really great at getting these ground balls. Don't be in such a rush to do something magical, because I'd emphasize what you said. They can't score when we have the ball.
Right.
That's different than taking the air out of the ball.
Yeah, well, so when you take the air out of the ball, you deflate the ball.
Right.
You don't want to deflate your players.
Right.
So again, you just rely on your players to understand what the game plan is, go out and execute it to the best of their ability, and believe in yourself and your teammates, and take it one play at a time. Just one play at a time. Get the first ground ball, make the first defensive stand, score the first goal, make the first save, and then add them up at the end of the game.
Coach, I'm assuming you've been a longtime friend of Dave Cottle's, haven't you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Respect Dave quite a bit. Just
absolutely.
want you to go back to June of 2010 when that shot was fired, and a bad pun today with a large school shooting in Texas. But when you heard the news that Dave Cottle was being let go at Maryland, and this guy John Tillman from Harvard was coming in, did you think it was a terrible move by Maryland at the time? Did you, in other words, history has shown it to be a brilliant move by Debbie Yao, but at the time, I know she got a lot of criticism for letting Dave Cottle out of there because he was well respected.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm, whenever a coach gets let go, it certainly is not something I like to read about or
Right.
hear about. Look, Coach Cottle had a great run at Maryland. He had a great run at Loyola. I don't know all the ins and outs of what went on there, but Dave Cottle, again, it's sometimes coaches there needs to be a change. That's
Yep.
just the way it is. And
Yep.
you hear that phrase at all. But if I recall, I just feel like, and I hear that the term, well, when a coach gets let go, well, there's no easy way.
Right.
Well, I agree. There's no easy way, but I think there's a right way to do things. So I'm not going to go on and on about this. It's obviously a sensitive subject because I spent my whole career coaching, but people in charge make decisions. Sometimes
Yep.
they go your way, sometimes they don't.
Darren.
Zim, you made a comment earlier about the growth of the sport, right? Players now play in all parts of the country. Before it kind of used to be an East Coast thing between Baltimore, New York, et cetera. But now you look at the rosters of these teams across the NCAA, you see Florida, Texas, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, all over the country, literally. You've also spent some time on the international stage. You have coached in, I guess, what we would call them the World Games. You've taken your team, the UMBC team, on some exchange trips to Japan and the Far East over the course of the offseason. Is this a sport where foreigners can come to America and play at a high level yet or ever? What is the talent difference? Like baseball, for instance, you've got players from the Far East, you've got players from Latin America who come in. They play those sports all times. But across the world, is lacrosse so far advanced in this country, in your opinion?
Well, I think just look to our neighbors to the north, and we get plenty of Canadians that come down and make huge impacts on lacrosse teams at every level. They're known for their scoring ability. Yet, one of the greatest Canadians to ever come down and play, and played at Georgetown, was just a defensive player. Right now, his name escapes me. It shouldn't, but Brody Merrill.
Yeah.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
a great Canadian player. Played defense, came down to Georgetown, all world. So I would say Canada and the U.S. We're kind of one as far as bringing
Yeah.
in foreign players. After that, I know some players from Japan have come over and played. One player played at Bucknell, I believe. I know there was a player from Germany on the Vermont team. Some Australians certainly have come and played. Some English players. So, but I still think that the United States and Canada really are the two major countries that dominate the world lacrosse scene.
Mm-hmm. And then on that note, lacrosse is also interesting to me. I actually asked this to Dave Cottle a while back. I'm not saying that the best players are college lacrosse players, because after watching the pros play, how their bodies have matured even after college, it is just some tremendous lacrosse. But I will say, though, that the popularity of the sport seems to peak at the college level. even though there's a lot of great play professionally, especially now in the PLL, I believe that the popularity of the sport still rests in the collegiate ranks. My question is it a sport that can ever make that conversion to where the professional leagues are, followed like MLS, for instance, maybe not MLB and NFL, but at least the model that the Major League Soccer has come up with, where they're getting 30 and 40,000 fans to a game regularly?
I think it can. I think lacrosse season is traditionally in the spring, and now since 1986, the championship game has been played on Memorial Day weekend. So now people are accustomed to that. And I think, like in Baltimore, you've got high school lacrosse in the spring, you've got college lacrosse in the spring, and then Memorial Day comes in, the season's over. Now it's time to do other stuff. Now the PLL has come in and they're playing in the summer. And I think the lacrosse fans look forward to continuing to watch really good lacrosse. I think the PLL, hopefully one day, those teams represent actual cities where I think then they can become more identifiable.
Right.
And I think once that happens, then it can really take off. But I also think that, lacrosse season stretches a long time, and when it's over, it's over. And, people in Baltimore, they go and watch the Orioles, they go to the beach, they do a bunch of other stuff. So, but it's exciting to see the PLL on TV, and I'm looking forward to watching it this summer.
You guys got into my next area of questioning is about the PLL, and I can't think right this second. What's the player who started? Paul Rabel.
Paul Rabel.
Paul Rabel.
Yep, Paul Rabel.
Boy, I just pulled that out like you pulled out Brody Merrill. I pulled that out of somewhere out of my head. The PLL, the model as it stands now, there isn't any territorial pull for me to root for anybody. It's like going out, not comparing it to the way the game's played, but it's like seeing the Harlem Globetrotters. You're there just to see the spectacle, not really root for a team. Does that in your mind? I guess you already answered that a little bit. You said one day, hopefully, they'll have cities attached to them.
Yeah, I guess you could compare it to barnstorming.
Yeah,
where they travel
exactly what it's like.
They travel and they play games and show their product to fans around the country. And I think that's a good start. When the MLL started, they had two teams, the American and the Nationals.
Right.
But again, I think that if one day they can link on to a city, I just think now all of a sudden you have a home team to root for.
Yeah.
And that would really help it get to the next level.
Don Zimmerman, before we let you go, and I know Gary will have another question, but this weekend also we've got some women's lacrosse taking place at Johns Hopkins University. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I don't know the women's game that well. I do watch it, and I know that North Carolina is undefeated.
Right.
And Boston College is right there
again
behind them. And I think last year that was the championship game, UNC and Boston College. So I guess they're on a collision course to repeat that. I like the women's game. I like the way the women run up and down the field. I think it can be confusing with some of the rules. They put the shot clock in, and like the men's game, the shot clock has just done wonders for the sport, just wonders. I think it's exciting, and we'll certainly tune in and watch some of the games over the weekend.
All right. And Towson is also hosting a big women's event later on, like in about a month or so, correct?
Right. Those are the Women's World Games. And in fact, my dear friend Yusuke Sasaki, who oversees all of the Japanese Lacrosse Association, he'll be coming to Baltimore to support the the Japanese women and be involved in the administration of the event. And looking forward to having them come to my home for the first time.
All right.
And I've known the man for
Awesome.
many years. So,
And will you be out there watching some of the women's games?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I still stay in touch with my friends over in Japan. They are wonderful people. What they've done with the sport of lacrosse has been absolutely amazing. And yeah, I look forward to watching them play.
All right, Gary, I want to get a prediction from Coach, but do you have one more question?
Well, that's what I was going to ask him, was to
That's
take off
fine.
his coach's hat and put on his commentator hat for him.
That's right.
Do you think Maryland wins this thing?
I do. I think Maryland's a team to beat, and I think no chink in the armor. No, I'll knock on wood. No chink in the armor. I think they're solid. They've got talent. They've got depth. They've got coaching. They're hungry. We spoke about ground balls and how important they are in the game of lacrosse. One of the things I love about watching Maryland play is the way they go after the ground ball. And what they loved, the other thing they love to do is they love to share the ball. So the combination of the first thing you do after you pick up a ground ball, for you young players out there watching, is you don't go to a cradle position, you look to move the ball right away. And so Maryland, they swarm ground balls, and then they're totally unselfish about making the next pass. They're not thinking goal or assist. They're going to pass the ball to the open guy. And boy, when you have that, with that kind of talent, no wonder they're so hard to beat, because they swarm ground balls and they're unselfish. They love playing the game together as a team.
Maybe a more interesting question is to ask you who you think will win the first game, the Cornell-Rutgers game.
Toss up, Stan. Every game's a toss up, but I gotta single out Maryland.
Yeah,
they've been number one all season long, and I just think they're a great team.
When you gave those numbers before, I was expecting, like when you said, which team was it that's -12 the first quarter? Was that Rutgers?
That was Cornell.
Cornell. You said they're -12, and then the second they're +12, +16, +18. I was expecting clearly Maryland to be, and I'm going, he's going to say +20. But when you said +46, and then you said, and they're 46 in the second quarter and 48 in the third. I mean, that was remarkable.
It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, those numbers. Like I said, I've never seen it before. And it just really does, statistics, they show you some things, obviously, but that one just jumps out. Last
thing I'll ask you tonight, Coach, is does the broadcasting do it for you, or do you yearn to be still part of the game in that special way, coaching?
I am part of the game in a very special way. I absolutely love broadcasting. It's just like coaching. You spend
without all the stress. There's
plenty of stress. The open still stresses me out. I'm shaking like a leaf. But it's like coaching. You prepare. You study films. You watch your opponent, and obviously you got two teams, so you have to double the load, so to speak. And then, but the difference is when the game's over. The game's over,
That's right.
and you critique yourself on the job that you did. I've been fortunate to work with some great play-by-play guys and the crews. I just really like the entire business. It's a tight-knit group. They work hard. It's unbelievable how hard these people work to produce these games, and I love it.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to hear that, and I'm so happy to hear that they respect you that much.
And they have to. It should.
Yeah, I mean, they should.
Yeah. You know what?
Thank you very much for your time, Coach Zimmerman. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. And looking forward to a great weekend of lacrosse.
Go ahead, Gary, quick.
Coach, if I could just say one more thing, I just want to let you know on a personal note, okay? I'm not from Baltimore, and I didn't know anything about lacrosse growing up in South Florida, right? I didn't come here until 1987. And then I started following, and I followed you at Hopkins. And then obviously I broadcast your games when you were coaching at UMBC. And you helped me a lot to really understand the game. And I really, really appreciate that. And, you know, all that you did there. And some of the greatest memories I ever have come from games that you've coached. Well,
Okay.
you know, I remember the America East Championship game against Albany when you guys came back from that 11-2 deficit, just ridiculous comeback, unbelievable. And then you beat Maryland in the tournament. That was an unbelievable. And even some of the losses at North Carolina, at Virginia in that lightning storm. I mean, those were great games played by great players, coached by great coaches. And those are some of the fondest memories that I have. So I thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, Gary. I've been blessed. You know, I've had wonderful assistants and just tremendous players. You know, we always tried to recruit good kids from good families, and it's just been, you know, it was a wonderful ride, and many great memories. And I appreciate your kind remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
guys.
Coach Zimmerman.
All right, appreciate you having me on.
All
Take
right.
care.
And I'll remind you before we get out of here that we are brought to you by the Costas Inn. The Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. Their phone number, 410-477-1975. And I give you that phone number because one of the ways to reach out to the Costas Inn, Gary, is to consider
Stanley.
them as the preeminent place for takeout, curbside, whatever you want to call it. But they really stepped up their curbside and takeout operation during the pandemic, and now they really reside as one of the top places to go get, whether it's your crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, steaks, chicken, salads, all kinds of different dishes there. So go to the menu, costasinn.com, check out the menu. You won't regret it. And they always pack the stuff so nothing spills. They do a really professional job at that. Gary, you have any news for our viewers as to who we're going to have on next week?
Yeah, we're going to actually, the next couple of weeks, we have a couple of interesting guests. We're going to talk to Cameron Levine, a sophomore at Johns Hopkins University, women's lacrosse.
That's Charlie's daughter.
That's Charlie's daughter. And she had a great year. And it's very rare that a sophomore starts for Hopkins, and Janine Tucker's last year. So we'll talk to her. And then the following week, we're going to talk to a young lady out of UMBC, a softball pitcher by the name of Courtney Coppersmith, who has just put up some tremendous numbers. That's number one. But number two, she has battled depression and mental health issues, and she is out and up front about it. And she's trying to make a difference in that landscape. So very interesting story from Courtney Coppersmith. And we're going to have those two coming up in the next 2 weeks.
All right. I appreciate your working on that, Gare. On a
Absolutely.
personal level, I don't know if it came across tonight or not, but I've been battling after 26, 27 months of avoiding it. I've come down with COVID.
Yep.
And it's been really quite an episode for the last couple of days. Got the monoclonal infusion, and I had a rough day yesterday, but today has been much better. So hope to be back fit as a fiddle pretty soon. All right.
And I hope Jane's doing okay too.
She's doing a little bit better. Gary, thank you. You're a good friend, and thanks for working on those guests for us. All right.
No problem. I'll see you.
We'll see you. We'll see you down the road pretty soon.